there are timeless truths. If we are always governed by the theory or word of the day or the year, or even if we're simply living into those things, that says nothing about their goodness. If this is your first time here, make sure and hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a video or an interview. Our goal is to help you enter into a confirmed, confident, and eternal relationship with the source of all life and purpose. Now, there have been some interesting words of the year in recent years. In 2018, the word of the year was toxic. And you might recall how I highlighted the 2016 word of the year in another video. The word chosen that year was post-truth. Now, just to review, there's a number of problems with simply the ideas enmeshed in that word, post-truth. They define post-truth as an adjective that denotes circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. I think they nailed it. Now, I should note here that the Oxford Dictionary isn't voting this word as their favorite word, and they're actually giving that right to the public, but it's more about a word that defines that particular year or that particular time period. But if you recall, there are several problems that we can immediately notice with that word of the year, post-truth. First, the dictionary, the book prescribed to tell us what words mean, is telling us that the word that best describes the time we're in is a word that means the meaning of words can change based upon appeals to emotion and not objective fact. And that barely made the news. Second, these ideas, as Paul said, do not occur in a corner. Bad ideas and faulty logic have horrible effects when brought to their conclusions. Just ask Nazi Germany. Third, to say we live in a post-truth world is an oxymoronic statement. Here's why. It's illogical and it's unlivable. The idea that truth is fluid or personal goes out the window every time that person goes to the doctor and wants to see an actual doctor and an actual objective degree on the wall. They don't want someone who just stayed at the Holiday Inn last night. See, when it matters, people always want objective truth. They want their mechanic to truly and actually fix their car properly. They want their doctor to truly and actually prescribe the correct medication. They want their accountant to truly and actually calculate their taxes. So even the people who claim to be post-truth don't live post-truth because it's unlivable. Finally, it's illogical. Because if we were post-truth and thereby truth is unknowable, then we would never be able to truly know that we were post-truth. Keep up with that? But now let's turn to more recent news. A recent article in the AP informs us that the Oxford Dictionary for the word of the year for 2022 is, drumroll, goblin mode. Goblin mode is defined as a type of behavior which is unapologetically self-indulgent, lazy, slovenly, or greedy, typically in a way that rejects social norms or expectations. Now, the article explains how this term rose to prominence in the wake of the pandemic. Although first seen on Twitter in 2009, goblin mode went viral on social media in February 2022, quickly making its way into newspapers and magazines after being tweeted in a mocked-up headline. The term then rose in popularity over the months following as COVID lockdown restrictions eased in many countries and people ventured out of their homes more regularly. Seemingly, it captured the prevailing mood of individuals who rejected the idea of returning to normal life or rebelled against the increasingly unattainable aesthetic standards and unsustainable lifestyles exhibited on social media. The Oxford Corpus lists many vivid examples of goblin mode, including goblin mode is like when you wake up at 2 a.m. and shuffle into the kitchen wearing nothing but a long t-shirt to make a weird snack like melted cheese on saltines, as quoted in the Guardian newspaper. More recently, an opinion piece in The Times stated that too many of us have gone goblin mode in response to a difficult year. Now, in regards to the word itself, as well as how that word was chosen, the Oxford language site reads, "The public has spoken. After opening the choice of Word of the Year up to English speakers for the first time in its history, over the last 2 weeks, more than 300,000 people cast their vote. The Oxford Word of the Year is a word or expression reflecting the ethos, mood, or preoccupations of the past 12 months, one that has potential as a term of lasting cultural significance. Supported by evidence of real language usage, Oxford's editors track candidates as they emerge throughout the year, analyzing frequency statistics and other language data in the Oxford English corpus. Previous words have included vax in 2021, climate emergency in 2019, and selfie in 2013. Casper Gratwall, the president of Oxford Language, says, "We were hoping the public would enjoy being brought into the process, but this level of engagement with the campaign caught us totally by surprise. The strength of the response highlights how important our vocabulary is to understanding who we are and processing what's happening to the world around us. Given the year we've just experienced, Goblin mode resonates with all of us who are feeling a little overwhelmed at this point. It's a relief to acknowledge that we're not always the idealized, curated selves that we're encouraged to present on our Instagram and TikTok feeds. This has been demonstrated by the dramatic rise of platforms like Be Real, where users share images of their unedited selves, often capturing self-indulgent moments in Goblin mode. People are embracing their inner goblin, and voters choosing Goblin mode as the word of the year tells us the concept is likely here to stay." Now, I think there's some interesting and relevant takeaways that we can gain and lessons that we can learn here. First, the way to deal with collective trauma is not in isolation. The world of science and technology have had some great output, but devoid of understanding God and his role in all of this, there are some issues to be aware of. Two primary issues need to be addressed. The first issue is loneliness. Now, it's quite literally killing many people, our kids included. And this makes sense from a Christian worldview because God, by his very nature of being triune, is relational and communal. Also, there are 59 one another's in the New Testament, things that we're supposed to do one to another or be in community doing these things together. And the Bible was written by people in a collectivist culture to people living in a collectivist culture. So they would immediately understand that sustained isolation is not something that's good for us. God's emphasis on gospel-centered true community is undeniable throughout text, throughout the scriptures. We need each other. In fact, the former U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, said in a Washington Post article in October 2017, "When you look at the data, what's really interesting is loneliness has been found to be associated with a reduction of lifespan. The reduction in lifespan for loneliness is similar to that caused by smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and it's greater than the impact on lifespan of obesity." So if you think about how much we put into curbing tobacco use and obesity compared to how much effort and resources we put into addressing loneliness, there's no comparison. These kids live on social media. We mostly live on social media. Studies show that this generation is safer when it comes to alcohol and drug use, but it's because they're more secluded on their phones in their bedrooms, essentially trading one evil for another. They may not be present as many parties, reckless parties, as we may have been, but they may be involved in a world just as, if not more dangerous, through their cell phones or other devices. The researchers found the largest single-year decline in illicit drug use since the survey began in 1975, with drops of about 5% from 2020 among 8th and 12th graders and nearly 12% among 10th graders. But in a very different sense, they are in a very real way killing themselves, and many of us are as well. In a study, researchers at the University of Chicago took urine samples from both the lonely and the more contented volunteers and found that the lonely ones had more of the hormone epinephrine flowing in their bodies. Epinephrine is one of the body's fight or flight chemicals, and high levels indicate that lonely people go through life in a heightened state of arousal. As with blood pressure, this physiological toll likely becomes more apparent with aging. Since the body's stress hormones are intricately involved in fighting inflammation and infection, it appears that loneliness contributes to the wear and tear of aging through this pathway as well. And all studies indicate that face-to-face interaction reduces feelings of loneliness. Not sure why they needed a whole study to figure that out, but okay. Lastly, Chamath Palihapitiya, who was the former VP of user growth at Facebook, said he feels tremendous guilt about the company he helped make. He said, I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops we've created are destroying how society works, he said, referring to online interactions driven by hearts, likes, thumbs ups. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth, and it's not an American problem, and this is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem. He says he tries to use Facebook as little as possible and that his children aren't allowed to use that. And this is one of the former heads of Facebook. So why am I talking about loneliness? Because I don't think everyone needs to be able to teach the cosmological argument or the argument from specified complexity or become an expert on the Hadith or panspermia in order to disciple our young people well. We need to meet their most basic need. They need to be known. And that provides us the avenue to answer all their ancillary or secondary questions in the process. See, meaning is the eternal search that everyone has, whether they admit it or not. But you cannot be fully loved if you're not fully known. And 99% is still partially unknown. So only in Christ, only in God can we be fully known and therefore fully loved. Technology has a tendency to have the effect of driving us deeper into ourselves. But we can never fully arrive at meaning in life by simply an internal investigation. I remember hearing John Ortberg say that you can only be loved to the extent that you're known. And you can only be fully loved if you're fully known. But who but a creator could fully know the 3.1 billion letters in the human genome, including those that make up you and me? Now, the second problem revealed in the concept behind this word of the year, goblin mode, is hopelessness, which manifests itself in a variety of ways. It might manifest itself from a form of drug abuse. Maybe it comes out in the form of depression. Maybe it manifests in a destructive lifestyle that speaks to the world that life has no meaning, so live reckless and die young. See, the disease that affects more people than heart disease, cancer, and AIDS is hopelessness. But the question is, where can the cure be found? And unlike many other ailments, hopelessness cannot be cured by swallowing a pill, taking a shot, or having surgery. Hopelessness can only be cured by a change in what you believe about life and about your true nature. The problem is that many people are not able to sift through the many non-FDA approved false remedies such as New Age spirituality or atheism. And allow me to briefly explain why these remedies can't provide the cure for this particular situation. See, how is it that we have such technological advancements and so much hate at the same time? We have so many things that are supposed to make us happy, yet suicide is at an all-time high. The American Society for the Prevention of Suicide records that suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the country and costs the U.S. approximately $51 billion a year. See, there's certain hopelessness that arises out of feelings of uncertainty about the events occurring around us, but if our worldview leads us to the conclusion that life has no meaning, what hope could there possibly be? Ultimately, if life has no meaning, which is where these other worldviews leave us, then hopelessness is all we're left with. But the question to whether life has meaning and what that means for us is found in the person of Jesus Christ. No other worldview so clearly lays out the condition of humanity and a solution for that condition. The condition of our hearts, our rampant desire for sin, our tendency to drift from God. Remember, hope is the conclusion reached after value has been assigned and life has been infused with meaning. But remember that value, including human value, is always given to the object. And if not God, who would be in position to give humans value? So not being certain of your value will lead to hopelessness in the end. If, as prominent atheist Richard Dawkins claims, we are just a collection of molecules, how can there be value in us? If, as he has written, we're just dancing to the tune of our own DNA, how can we have true value? I'm sure if you ask him, though, he'd say, I'm valuable. When I think of the specified complexity of DNA, where it's been noted that in one cell of an amoeba there is more information than in all 30 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica, it seems to fly in the face of logic to suggest that simple evolutionary processes were solely responsible for this amalgamation of information. And the information within each DNA chain is so specific to each individual, yet all individuals possess the same basic material. The atheists would have us believe that a set of specified instructions that tell an organism how to think, live, breathe, move, and act would be from a random set of forces and not from a messenger. But messages that we see, hear, receive always come from messengers. And I would submit to you that it is our relationship with that messenger that gives our lives true meaning. When I think of the fine-tuning of the universe and the intentionality of God is evident, he's purposeful. How could he be any less purposeful regarding your life or mine? When I think of the second law of thermodynamics, which lets us know that the universe is running out of usable energy, the great galaxy seeds in the radiation afterglow, or Einstein's theory of general relativity, which, along with these other discoveries, conclusively prove that the universe was not eternal, but had a definite beginning. And anything that has a beginning has a beginner. However, in spite of these discoveries by many atheistic scientists even, it is the very notion of such a beginner that they deny. But to find true meaning, we can't turn to what we can discover or what we can invent. True meaning is found in the one who created what we will eventually get to discover. The Bible says that it's the glory of God to conceal a matter. And that's because he wants us to be able to experience the joy of discovery, holy discovery. So neither New Age spirituality with its feet firmly planted in midair, nor atheism can provide us an answer regarding does life have meaning, because they can't tell us the source of where that meaning would emanate from. And if either of those worldviews were true, you might as well just have fun, because if there is no God, life has no meaning. And if life has no meaning, then nothing we do ultimately means anything. But none of us actually believe that or live like that, including the atheists who argue so vehemently for their position. Because if life has no meaning, then why do you even care what anyone else believes? But as the Apostle Paul said in his brilliant oration on Mars Hill, God who made the world and everything in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all life, breath, and all things. For in him we live and move and have our being. It is in the person of Jesus Christ that we have our being and from whom we derive our meaning in life. It is only in the person of Jesus that we have an answer to the meaning of life. And here's why. We can't decide if something is meaningful until we know what is true. See, truth and meaning are inextricably linked. And only in the Christian worldview is truth not simply a concept, but a person. Jesus uttered these words, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Not a way, not a path, but the truth. You see, there's some questions that technology and Google and even the dictionary can't answer. The only answer to the question, does life have meaning, that seems to suffice is found in the Christian worldview, because in this worldview, life has meaning because we are eternally connected to the one who gives meaning to all things. And lastly, there are timeless truths. If we are always governed by the theory or word of the day or the year, or even if we're simply living into those things, that says nothing about their goodness. If we were to grant that goblin mode accurately describes our current society or the zeitgeist of the day, that would say nothing about whether we ought to embrace such a term. In other words, the term's accuracy should give us cause to reassess our mindset and collectively the mindset of the society. And finally, the gospel is not beholden to the zeitgeist of any day. And for those that feel self-indulgent, lazy, slovenly, greedy, or have a desire to reject social norms or expectations, the gospel speaks to all these issues. Additionally, there's a reason that this channel is called Relentless Pursuit of Purpose. And it's because the identity and value given to us as individuals by God helps us to ground purpose in life and ground meaning in life. And this prevents us from being slovenly or lazy. The gospel informs us that life itself and our own lives in particular are not about us. Our lives should be directed upward and outward. So this also means we can't be greedy or overly self-indulgent because that actually won't make us fulfilled in the long run. And this may be why continually feeding your own habits or desires never seems to actually satisfy yourself. There's always a piece missing from the puzzle. The breakdown of the word also said it is a relief to acknowledge that we're not always the idealized, curated selves that we're encouraged to present on our Instagram and TikTok feeds. The gospel says that you never needed to present an idealized or curated version of yourself in the first place. The gospel is also countercultural, and therefore rejecting social norms or expectations comes with the territory. But the kingdom of God is a much better and a much bigger territory in which to dwell. But I'd love to know what you think about the 2022 word of the year, goblin mode, in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. And until next time, peace.